Courtroom gasps echoed the moment he stood. A young black teen in a faded gray hoodie, worn-out sneakers, grease-stained hands from cleaning floors. Every eye in the room judged him silently. In the front row sat Principal Reed, the same man who expelled him from high school. Claimed it was for serious ethical misconduct. On the bench above was Judge Sandra Hayes. Her cold stare said it all. This trial was just a formality before lunch. Next to Marcus sat a weary public defender. He hadn't glanced at Marcus once, just opened his briefcase and shut it again. Marcus stood silently. His hands trembled slightly, but his eyes stayed sharp, because today he wasn't just here to defend himself, he was here to flip the script. No one knew. Marcus used to be a top student. Every night after janitor shifts, he'd read legal textbooks under a dim lamp. He devoured true crime documentaries. Always wondered if justice was real. Then one day, justice turned its back on him. Defendant Marcus Bell. Occupation, school janitor. Charged theft of high-value tech equipment. Evidence a missing laptop from the storage room. Witness his former principal. Principal Reed claimed he saw Marcus near the scene. Police arrested Marcus based on one detail. His hands had dust from the supply closet. No one asked why he was there. No one checked the security footage. No one reviewed the system access logs. They saw a poor black janitor and assumed guilt. To them, Marcus was disposable. A kid with no father. A mother lost to cancer. Living with his grandmother in a crumbling neighborhood. Working 3 part-time jobs to survive. And still dreaming of law school at the University of Georgia. The gavel slammed. Judge Hayes sighed with boredom. Court is now in session. Case number 521. Defendant Marcus Bell is present. Defense counsel, do you wish to proceed? The public defender stood, then sat again. We have no significant objections, Your Honor. The defendant admits to being near the scene. Marcus turned to him slowly. The lawyer avoided his gaze. Silence filled the courtroom. Everyone thought it was over. Just another poor kid heading to prison. But Marcus took a deep breath. He stepped forward. His voice rang clear. Your Honor, I wish to represent myself. Gasps swept across the room. Judge Hayes narrowed her eyes. You don't have the right to self-represent. Marcus didn't blink. I've studied Clause 3, Section 12. Under Georgia state law, I'm allowed. I have new evidence and a valid reason. The courtroom went ice cold. Principal Reed tugged at his tie. The public defender sighed in defeat. The judge stared for a moment. You get 3 minutes. Don't waste my time. Marcus reached into his crossbody bag, pulled out a red USB with chipped paint, plugged it into the courtroom projector. Your Honor, this footage is critical. Recovered from my personal cloud backup. From a secondary camera, not scrubbed from logs. The screen flickered to life. Night vision. Clear as day. Principal Reed inside the storage room. Opening a cabinet. Taking the laptop. Walking out. No Marcus. No one else. Principal Reed jumped to his feet. Objection. That video is fake. Marcus pointed to the corner of the footage. The timestamp matches the server login record. The same IP address as the main office. And Your Honor, I have more. Marcus pulled out a thick folder. Old papers, creased edges, a broken binder clip. He held it up so everyone could see. This is a system access log report. I respectfully submit it as valid evidence. Verified and signed by a senior IT admin. The person who sent it is Trevor Daniels. He works at the county's data center now. Marcus opened the folder, voice steady. Login recorded at 9:14 p.m. Access the school's internal storage system. Device ID matches the principal's workstation. I never had those permissions. And no one bothered to check that detail, because everyone just assumed I was guilty. Judge Hayes sat up straighter now, no longer leaning back in disinterest. Principal Reed wiped his forehead. The public defender finally raised his head. For a moment, the room was silent. Every eye was on Marcus. No one laughed. No one smirked anymore. Marcus continued, slow and calm. Your Honor, I was fired. Not because I stole anything, but because I asked too many questions. I asked why the main cameras were offline. I asked why no one checked the system logs. And the next day, I was terminated. But I didn't give up. I went to the public library every night. I studied state law, school policy. I taught myself how to gather evidence. I kept records. Every little thing. Because deep down, I knew this day would come. Principal Reed jumped to his feet. He's lying. This is a fantasy. No janitor knows the law. No janitor outsmarts a real attorney. Judge Hayes slammed her gavel 3 times. Sit down or you'll be held in contempt. Marcus didn't flinch. He didn't even look back. He kept his eyes on the judge's bench. I'm not a lawyer, Your Honor. But I believe truth doesn't need a degree. It only needs someone stubborn enough to prove it. Judge Hayes studied Marcus in silence. The pause lasted almost a full minute. Then she turned to the district attorney. Does the prosecution wish to respond? The prosecutor stared at the papers in his hand. His fingers shook. I request a recess to verify the data. Marcus nodded and lowered the folder. Thank you for hearing me out, Your Honor. All I ever wanted was to be believed. To believe this system can still be fair. Just once. For someone like me, the courtroom fell into an unnatural quiet. No more laughter. No more whispers. All eyes on that boy. In a faded hoodie, worn-out shoes, and eyes that still burned like embers. The kind of fire born from pain and patience. In the very back row, his grandmother wept. She wiped her tears with a thin, old handkerchief. No one knew she sold her only earrings just to print those documents. No one saw her bike 10 miles in the rain to get the USB to Marcus before court. Judge Hayes struck her gavel once more. This court is recessed pending data verification. The defendant will be released in the meantime. Principal Reed lowered his head, said nothing. Marcus didn't smile, didn't speak again. He just looked at his grandmother and stepped down. Right after court was adjourned, reporters were already waiting outside. Cameras pointed straight at Marcus. Flashes went off like lightning strikes. Janitor boy stuns courtroom with victory. Marcus Bell defends himself like a pro. Marcus, how did it feel when the judge listened? Do you plan to study law now? Marcus lowered his head, pulled his hoodie up, then turned to his grandmother, waiting quietly by the curb. Let's go home, Grandma. I'm tired. She nodded gently, squeezing his hand. You did so well, Marcus. I always believed in you. On the way back, his phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages from old friends. Even strangers congratulating him. Some said they wanted to pay for his college. Others weren't so kind. Must have just gotten lucky. No way he did that alone. Some big shot probably coached that janitor kid. No way he figured out the law and tech stuff by himself. Marcus read them quietly, then turned off his screen. He hadn't done this to get famous. He only wanted one thing: for the truth to be heard. Just once. For himself. For his mom. For every poor kid ever wrongly accused. The next day, the evening news aired. Principal Alan Reed has been suspended. Police are investigating internal school operations, possibility of ties to missing tech equipment. Logs show unauthorized system access. The anchor read every word with clarity. Meanwhile, at the district attorney's office, old files connected to Reed were reopened. At least 3 former staff had filed complaints, but each one was quietly dismissed. No hearings, no follow-up, because all of them were poor, or black, or both. Marcus watched the news knuckles clenched around the TV remote. His grandmother laid a soft hand on his shoulder. "What you did, son. It's bigger than you think. You didn't just save yourself, Marcus. You lit up a corner of darkness." That night, a call came in. An unfamiliar number popped up. University of Georgia Law School. He hesitated, then picked up. A calm woman's voice came through. "Hi, Marcus. This is Dean Campbell, head of Community Law Initiatives. We watched your courtroom presentation, and we'd love to invite you to speak with us." Marcus didn't respond right away. He sat still on that old wooden kitchen chair. His eyes drifted to the photo on the shelf, a picture of his mom. Faded by time, but still shining. He smiled softly, then spoke into the phone. "Yes, ma'am. I'd be honored." 3 weeks later, the courtroom reconvened. Media flooded the courthouse hallway. Over a dozen cameras were set up inside. The same faces that once mocked Marcus now sat in silence. No one called him the janitor boy anymore. Marcus walked in. No more gray hoodie. He wore a white shirt, a fitted blazer. Still the same old shoes. But he walked with confidence. His grandmother followed behind, pride shining in her tired eyes. Judge Hayes entered with a new expression. No more icy detachment. No more quiet dismissal. She looked at Marcus and gave a subtle nod. Today's hearing will readdress the case with new evidence submitted by the defendant. A young prosecutor stepped forward. Nervous eyes. A thick stack of papers. "We have thoroughly re-examined the case files, and we are formally withdrawing all charges. We also recommend launching an independent investigation." The courtroom buzzed with whispers. Some gasped, some bowed their heads. Principal Reed was nowhere to be seen. He'd been suspended indefinitely, now awaiting a formal summons for questioning. Judge Hayes tapped her gavel and turned to Marcus. "Do you have anything you'd like to say?" Marcus stood. His voice rang clear across the chamber. "I'm not celebrating this verdict, because I should never have been charged. I don't want others to go through what I did. No one deserves prison just because of bias. No one should be silenced for being poor. I hope this becomes a lesson for the system. Don't judge someone by how few chances they had." The judge paused, bit her lip, then leaned into the mic, her tone reflective. "I've done this job for 30 years, and I've never seen a hearing like this. You didn't just defend yourself, Marcus Bell. You forced me to look in the mirror." She brought the gavel down one final time. "This case is dismissed in full. All charges against the defendant are vacated. The court declares Marcus Bell innocent." The courtroom erupted in applause. Some people stood. Some wiped away tears. The boy once laughed at now stood tall in their eyes. Marcus didn't cry, but his eyes shimmered. Outside the courtroom, a lawyer walked up quietly, handed him a business card. "If you're looking for a summer internship, give me a call. We need people like you in our office." Marcus nodded and thanked him, then stepped outside. The golden afternoon sun hit his face, but this time, nothing could dim his light. He was no longer just a janitor. He had become a symbol of truth, of justice. 1 week later, Marcus arrived at the University of Georgia. The law school building stood tall before him. Big gates, the scales of justice glowing above the entrance. On a stone bench nearby, his grandmother waited patiently. "Go on, baby. Today's your day." Marcus walked into the dean's office. Dean Campbell greeted him with a warm smile. "We reviewed your case file," she said, "and watched the entire courtroom footage. No one could believe a young man self-taught all that." Marcus smiled softly, accepting the glass of water she offered. "I only learned what I could," he replied. "No one taught me, but the truth that was always clear." Dean Campbell nodded. "That's exactly why we made this decision." She pulled out a sheet of paper. "We'd like to offer you a full scholarship for 4 years of undergraduate law, covering housing, meals, and all textbooks. You'll also be assigned a personal advisor." Marcus froze. His hand trembled holding the water. He stared at the dean, stunned. I wasn't expecting this. I just came to ask if there were any support programs." The dean smiled gently. "You don't need to ask anymore. You've already earned it." Outside, his grandmother burst into tears. Marcus hugged her tight under the shade of tall campus trees. "See, Grandma," he whispered. "I finally made it in, and I didn't have to beg anyone to get here." A month later, Marcus officially started college. His first law class, a spacious modern lecture hall. Students sat in clusters, some typing, some flipping through thick casebooks. Marcus sat in the front row, eyes bright, no trace of fear left. The professor walked in, a well-known legal mind, famous for challenging wrongful convictions in court. She scanned the room, then asked, "Has anyone here ever witnessed a wrongful conviction?" Marcus raised his hand. No hesitation, no pause. "I didn't just witness it," he said. "I lived it." Heads turned. No one spoke. But their eyes were full of respect. That day's lecture was about justice and truth, how society often judges too quickly. Marcus took notes like he always had, but this time, he knew. These notes weren't just for learning. They were preparation for something much bigger ahead. That evening, Marcus got a text message from a nonprofit organization based in Washington, D.C. "We'd like to invite you to speak," it read, "at the National Student Justice Forum. Travel and expenses will be fully covered." Marcus read it 3 times, his heart pounding. He never imagined he'd come this far, from a janitor falsely accused to a voice that could inspire the nation. He pulled out his wallet, looked at the worn photo of his mother. "I'm doing it, Mom. I'm not stopping here. I promise." Marcus arrived in Washington on a crisp fall day. Wearing a brown coat and his old canvas bag, he stepped into the conference center. He was the youngest person in the lobby, surrounded by law students, lawyers, and journalists. All of them had heard the story, the boy from Georgia who challenged the system. The talk was held in a grand hall. The host gave a brief introduction. When the system turned its back on him, he made it turn around and listen. Marcus stepped onto the stage to a wave of applause. He took a deep breath, faced the crowd. His voice rang out, steady, honest, unfiltered. "I didn't come here as a hero. I came here as a survivor of judgment and prejudice, a survivor of baseless accusations, a survivor of being unheard. But today, I'm no longer alone. I know there are thousands like me, people without a voice, without a good lawyer, people with no camera footage, no evidence, and they're still out there, waiting for justice. The hall fell silent. Each word pierced the room like a blade. Then Marcus ended with a quiet, powerful line. Sometimes, to change the world, you only need to ask one question. Why is it this way? After the talk, hundreds stood to applaud. Many came forward to shake his hand. A mother whispered, "My son was once misunderstood too." A young student said, "You gave me a reason to stay in law school." On the flight back to Georgia, Marcus stared out the airplane window. The night sky stretched wide before him, like the journey still ahead. He opened his notebook, wrote one sentence on a fresh page. No one should ever have to defend themselves alone. The following month, Marcus founded a small group. He called it the Voice of the Silenced. Together with a few friends, he helped others write legal complaints, taught them how to collect evidence properly, and most importantly, he listened to the stories that no one else had time to hear. Not everyone has the means to fight. Not everyone knows how to defend themselves. But if just one person dares to begin, then the second won't have to stand alone. And one day, the truth won't stay buried. Not because you're rich or poor, not because you hold a degree or not, but because you found the courage to speak. If you've ever felt overlooked, if you've ever stayed silent out of fear, remember the story of Marcus Bell and believe this: your voice matters. Hit like if you still believe in justice. Share this story if you want others to know. And don't forget to subscribe to help us spread more stories that touch the heart. Marcus did it, and so can you. Starting today,